Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 23rd ever Highlight Haven interview. My name is Matthew Heiserman, and today we are joined by a very special guest. He is an analyst for Hogs Haven and the host of the Trap or Dive podcast. Let me welcome Jamal Forrest to the show. It's great to have you on.
Appreciate you, Matt. Appreciate you for having me. Thank you for the invite. I am excited to talk some Commanders football.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's get right into it. I just want to start by asking when you first knew that you wanted to be involved in the sports industry.
Oh, okay. All right. So it's actually that's a really good question. And I think I would say this because I don't know exactly how old you are, Matt. But I think one of the things that I do regret is not transitioning to this avenue earlier in my life. Um, I was early 20s and I was doing a lot of talking on social media, Twitter specifically, and I realized that I had a lot to say and I felt like my
Yeah.
words I didn't want them to go to waste on social media. So I was like, let me start writing in a formal manner. So I created a blog and like I said, I was in my mid 20s, probably a junior in college, and it just blossomed from there. I was able to get some opportunities and keep growing as a writer, and things have worked out for me since then. But that's kind of the avenue that I took. Mid 20s, man. It's been fun, and a good hobby outside of my day job.
Yeah, and I mean, before you started writing articles and all that, is there a specific career path that you wanted to go, down?
Yeah. Football. I wanted to play football. I wanted to play football. I wanted to so uh side note, and this is cool. I don't mind sharing it. I have Crohn's disease. But like when I was growing up, like my big battle in life, while I was playing football was that. And unfortunately, that won, and I wasn't able to continue playing football. So that was something. And by the way, like football was something that I was really good at. So that
Mm.
even hurt. That even hurt more because it was taken away from me. So with that being said, that was one thing. And then I transitioned to sports management when I went to undergrad at my first college at University of Maryland Eastern Shore. And eventually I just faded away from sports altogether in my majors. So yeah, sports management was the next step outside of football. Maybe becoming a sports agent was the thing that I was thinking about. But unfortunately, things just didn't go out as planned initially, and we had to find other ways later in life.
Yeah, and I mean, moving over to some Commanders questions. Obviously, Washington just picked up a 42-19 win over the Tennessee Titans, advancing their record to 8-5. What were your main takeaways from that matchup?
So they checked off a lot of boxes.
Yeah.
You think about their last 3 weeks, Matt, and some of the things that come to mind. You aren't running the ball well. You aren't seeing the field well in terms of like the passing game. Like your receivers aren't getting open. Your quarterback is late to deliver the pass sometimes, or sometimes they're kind of inaccurate. Like the decisiveness and the cohesion isn't there offensively. Defensively, you are doing a good job from time to time, but like eventually the dam breaks because your offense isn't moving the ball or establishing drives. You aren't scoring in the red zone. You're missing field goals. A lot of things that just goes hand in hand, and then the dam breaks completely against the Dallas Cowboys, where you give up special teams touchdowns as well as not scoring on the offensive side of the football. Um, and so when you go into the game against the Tennessee Titans, you have another challenge with a top 10 defense statistically in yards
Mhm.
allowed. They're an effective defense in that regard, but they do give up points. And they give up points because they turn the ball over often. They make a lot of self-inflicted wounds, and they can't keep their offense on the field. So you check off all the boxes. How you establish the run game, you are efficient in terms of your passing game. What Jaden Daniels went 25 of 30 on the day for 209 yards or 210 yards. Uh, one turnover, an interception that really wasn't his fault.
Yeah, no.
Zach Ertz, yeah, I'm about to say if you throw the ball up there, Zach Ertz, don't get nervous because your ribs is exposed. Go up there and grab the ball if you want to jump up there. It gets tipped, turnover. But very efficient day from Jaden Daniels. Brian Robinson, 40-yard carry on the first drive that ends up in a touchdown. Your offensive line is moving the line of scrimmage. You're dominating the time of possession. You're turning the football over defensively. You're creating turnovers on special teams. You're flipping the field for your offense. And you're stopping the run game for the Tennessee Titans. They're checking off all the boxes that you needed to check off in terms for a team to get off that losing streak that they were and get back in the right track heading into the bye week. My main takeaways is like they did exactly what they needed to do against the Tennessee Titans, despite what people may think their record is, which it isn't good. But you're talking about a defense who came in here that was actually really good, and Washington dominated. Sure, the Titans had a letdown, but it don't matter if you were a major influence to why they had a letdown.
Yeah, and I mean, right now I have it up actually. The Titans have allowed 172 passing yards per game, which is the fewest of any team in the NFL. So people don't necessarily consider Tennessee as one of the best defenses, but their pass defense has been really well. And I think this was just a must-win game for Washington. You can't lose four and then go into the bye week. All momentum would have been lost there. But yeah, it was just a really, really good game all around, coming off that atrocious game against the Cowboys. But moving on Saturday, the Commanders placed Austin Eckler on IR, meaning that he will be out for at least 4 games. The soonest Eckler can come back is in Week 18 against the Cowboys. What do you think this move is going to mean for Washington throughout the remainder of the season?
I think a good indicator of how things are going to go moving forward is how they operated against the Titans with Chris Rodriguez coming in, and then obviously um, who's the second guy that I'm drawing a blank on right now?
Jeremy
Um,
McNichols?
Thank you, Jeremy
Yeah.
McNichols. Yeah, I think those two are going to be and you got to pray that Brian Robinson can avoid the injury bug. He's been kind of plagued up to this point in the season. But you see like the juice that Brian Robinson provides in terms of when he's in the lineup and he's actually able to get those tough yards in between the tackles, in between the guards, like those type of runs, those tough runs. And I think that's more important for this offense. But in terms of your spellbacks, right? Your backup running backs. Chris Rodriguez is showing flashes in his 2 games that he really had opportunities. 94 yards on 13 carries. And I don't know the exact numbers against the Giants, but like that was the other opportunity that he had where he was just as efficient in that game in the Meadowlands. So I think honestly the rotation needs to be primarily B-Rob, of course, but at the same time you kind of see like the contribution that your 2 backups can provide. I think the question will now be because Austin Eckler, I think he had 20 or he had 20 plus catches as a running back, right? And he was the person who could run your routes outside of the formation, out wide. He can run them out of the backfield. He provided that versatility for your offense. Where's that versatility going to come from now, right? Like he opened up your offense in a few different ways, and he got into the screen game from Cliff Kingsbury in so many different ways. And I think that's kind of a question mark moving forward. It's not a detriment. It's not going to hurt your offense, but it's more so where does the creativity come from now? Do they use Jeremy McNichols in that role? Because they're not going to use Brian Robinson in that role. Like he can catch the ball, but he's not like a route runner, right? So who does that come from, or do they just rely on the receivers a little bit more? And that's kind of a question that we'll find out moving forward.
Yeah, now another move the Commanders made on Saturday was releasing Emmanuel Forbes, who was their first round pick in 2023. This means that all 4 of Washington's first round picks under Ron Rivera are no longer on the team. Do you think it was time to release Forbes, or did he deserve another chance despite a slow start to his career?
Man, what you think, man? Did he deserve another chance, man?
Nah.
Man, honestly, the writing was on the wall for Forrest for a long time here with this new regime. Excuse me. I mean, he wasn't playing right, and he wasn't playing on defense. He damn sure wasn't playing on special teams, right? So you got to think about those elements for Washington and Emmanuel Forrest specifically. He just wasn't a fit here, and the coaches really didn't trust him, and they showed it through their actions. They just didn't trust him on any level. And he was too inconsistent as a defender in the pass game. So it's like if we can't trust you in the run game to bring that physicality that we need from our cornerbacks, and we can't trust you to consistently be there in the passing game where we're giving up explosives if you're on the field. Now, what does that? Where does that leave us? And I think Emmanuel Forbes, honestly, it was just a matter of time till his future was complete here in Washington. And I think this coaching staff really just expedited the process by getting rid of him now, going into a bye week. And actually, as we're talking, I'm not sure if you noticed, Matt, but he got picked up from the Rams off of waivers. So he actually, I thought he was going to clear waivers, but they picked him up and they took on that 5th year for him. So he did find a new home immediately with the Los Angeles Rams. We'll see how it works out for him. But I don't blame Washington at all, and they made the right decision, get rid of him right now.
And I think part of it is, okay, you draft a bust. That's one thing. And then it's also, we could have had Christian Gonzalez. And before the draft, I wanted Gonzalez. Then we didn't pick him. When the pick after us to New England, now he's one of the best young corners in the league. I think overall, just a fresh start without Ron Rivera. Going to lead to some good things. But now that, I guess the Ron Rivera past is kind of behind us, now that none of our first round picks play on the team anymore. So I guess that could lead to some better stuff in the future, obviously. And then Marshawn Lattimore has missed his first 4 games as a Commander due to a hamstring injury. This is obviously a big blow for Washington, a team that needs all the cornerback help they can get. What are your expectations for Lattimore once he returns to the field?
I mean, my expectations are up there. Like that's an elite cornerback. He has a reputation behind him, and I think everything from competitiveness and how he can really change the defense, or specifically Washington's defense, I think is going to be beneficial to us. Now, I will say after the game, also in relation to Emmanuel Forrest being cut, Dan Quinn did mention after the game that this was also in relation to Marshawn being closer to returning than uh well, closer to returning, period. So they felt that they can cut Emmanuel Forbes. So that's presumably saying that he'll be ready after the bye week. I don't want to put words in Dan Quinn's mouth, but at the end of the day, you got 2 more weeks before Marshawn gets back on the field, or 13 days specifically. Odds are he's playing against the New Orleans Saints in a couple of weeks. All that to
Then
say,
I was just going to say how great that would be seeing him obviously against his old team in
yeah.
his first game for us.
Yeah, it's divine timing, is what people like to say. But all that to say, man, I think what he can do in terms of coverages is like he can move around on your defense. I think that the biggest thing for him, as the coaches have stated in their pressers, is just really learning the communication, like the language of the defense. And I think that was the biggest thing, to making sure that he can play fast when he gets out there. No confusions, making sure that he can go from player to player, or somebody says something to him and he understands what he has to do, or understands what he needs to communicate to other players or other teammates, so they can play just as fast if he's seeing something that they aren't seeing, or he wants to make them alert of. And what that allows you to do, from a player standpoint, you can change how you put people in the box. For example, Saquon Barkley ran in the second half of the game, ran all over Washington. If you want to bring that 7th man down in the box, you can do that now, because you have a Marshawn Lattimore going up against A.J. Brown, whichever way he lines up on the field. And you can put St. Juice on Devontae Smith or whoever else is out there, Jahan Dotson. So you got options now, because you have a Marshawn Lattimore who's capable of holding his own, whether he gives up some passes or whether he turns the ball over or he gets you off the field on the 3rd down. You can trust him out there. And I think that's kind of the differences that he'll bring to a defense in Washington specifically. And when you're down this stretch and you're ultimately going to make the playoffs, like I think Washington does, you're either going to see Philly 2 more times based on the way the seedings are going, or you're going to go up against another team who has maybe a Justin Jefferson or DK Metcalf or something. Well, not Justin Jefferson, because they're second place, but a DK Metcalf or who's the other guy? Who's the other team? Mike Evans. Sorry, Mike Evans that you're thinking of. So you got options.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think it's safe to say that Terry McLaurin is on pace to have the best season of his career. Through 13 games, he has 896 receiving yards, which ranks 3rd among all wide receivers in the NFL this season. He also has 9 touchdowns on the year, which is the most touchdowns he's ever had in a single season. With that being said, do you think McLaurin has what it takes to be the number one receiver on a contending team?
Um, I still think like Terry is like the ultimate. Like, put it this way, Terry is better than T. Higgins, right?
Mhm.
But Terry is what T would be if Washington had like a Jamar Chase. I hope
Yeah.
that's not confusing. But like he is a 1B.
Okay.
He's a 1B is where I'm getting at. And I think Terry is like he's playing with a better quarterback, right? So with that being said, you're being exposed to what more he can do if he has better ball placement. He has a quarterback who can get rid of the ball on time. He has a quarterback who can see the field a little bit better. All those things that benefits any receiver, right? Because think about it. I know this question is about Terry, but Noah Brown,
Mhm.
like he's having tons of targets, tons of success in Washington's offense as their number two, their de facto number two, right? You got Zach Ertz, 40 years old, 30, like I think he's second in the league, second on the team, excuse me, in targets and receptions. So I think those are the things you think about when you talk about the quarterback aspect. And for Terry, a person who's really gotten better as a route runner, um, but he's also just having those opportunities where he's having those one-on-ones downfield, like those contested catching opportunities, something that he always thrived in is now being exploited for the better a little bit more because you have a quarterback who can get him the football. So I still think he's 1B, but now you're really seeing what that looks like with a really good quarterback.
Yeah, and I mean, part of it could be the Commanders going out and signing a wide receiver who could be their wide receiver one, who's better than McLaurin. I also think they might just want to be able to support him a little bit more. Uh, no offense to Noah Brown, but I don't think he should necessarily be a team's number two receiver. So I know this is a pretty strong draft, at least. In terms of wide receivers, you have Igbuka. Luther Burden said that he's going to be going into this year's draft just earlier today. So maybe we see the Commanders go after one of those guys. And moving over to the defense, Washington has allowed 20 plus points just 3 times in their first 8 games of the season. Since then, they've given up 20 plus in 4 of their last 5 games. Is Washington's recent defensive struggle something to be worried about?
This is a side of the ball that I'm super conflicted on. Like
Mhm.
I wasn't confused about the offense. I wasn't concerned about the offense. Like that cliff. Like I don't think that was real for Washington. I don't think that you wasn't really like they were in a slump because they played two really good defenses in Pittsburgh. And even though they put up 27 points, whatever it was, but they still was on it. They still had some issues against Pittsburgh. They had some really big issues against Philadelphia and some random issues against the Dallas Cowboys. Defensively, I see improvement. I've seen a team who, for the first few weeks of the season, like Devin Singletary of the New York Giants, had like 90 yards or 100, like 90 yards in on 10 or 11 carries in the first game. And in the second game, they had over 100 something yards in the second half. I mean, in the first half alone, but they hold them to like 20 or 30 in the second half. Um, and there's other stories of like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers being able to run on them. Cincinnati Bengals who can't run the football, told it, right? And these are all early in the season, but you see glimpses of a team who can really hone in if they all just like stay on the same page and stay gap discipline. They don't play selfish football, right? The only issue is some people are just a little light. And what I mean by that is like you can get some combo blocks like those where you have those two offensive linemen, one head up on the defender, the other one chipping them as they get to the linebackers on the next level. Like those type of blocks are just pure double teams where it's 2v1, like, and they drive them off the football. We have people who are light, such as the rookie Johnny Newton. Um, and I mean, he's a young guy. You know, he has to work on his core strength. He has to understand how to anchor a little bit better. So it's not like a he can't do it. Is he can't do it yet. So I think there's elements of this team where I'm like, I see these guys getting better. I see these interior defenders, such as a Phil Mathis, who Unfortunately, that's my dog, but the coaches are falling out of favor for him. I see him playing better. I see Sheldon Day playing better. Those interior defensive linemen who's helping out in terms of the run defense, and I see these guys run blitzing a little bit more effectively. Frankie Lou having a hell of a season for Washington. But I think that's kind of the biggest question that leaves me a little confused, because if they can really hone in on stopping the run, then you're talking about a complete team. You're talking about a complete defense. Because the pass game, I don't really see too much of a struggle as it was early in the season. They kind of shortened the communication issues. And I have confidence in the secondary, but the run game is where the questions exist. I've seen improvement. I just don't know if the consistency can really get there when it matters.
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about the offense now, we've talked about the defense. I want to talk a little bit about Austin Seibert and the entire kicking team, I guess you could say.
Mm.
Obviously, Seibert had an extremely rocky performance against Dallas in week 12, including a missed extra point that cost Washington the game. Besides that miss and a few other minor mistakes, though, I'd say he's had a pretty solid season so far, especially when he first joined the team. But considering that we got him in a desperate attempt to find a kicker, I'd say he's done a pretty good job. However, Seibert is now on IR. Would you expect this to be his last season for the Commanders? I know how fragile the kicker position is. You miss a few kicks here and there, and you're off the team, but it's hard to disregard what he did in the first 5 weeks he was on Washington.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that was rough, because you're talking about a person who, I mean, the two missed field goals he missed against Dallas. Uh, well, I think one was blocked, right? So you missed one. Um, but at the same time, like, it wasn't close. It was a 50-yarder, and nobody, you got them. Those are the money ones that when your team count on you, right? I don't know if this is the end of Seibert, but I will say, for him to be here for only a short period of time in Washington, he can very easily get replaced if they do find somebody down the line. Dan Quinn did speak today on, well, I guess we're talking on Monday. He spoke today, and he said that he has all the faith in the world in Zane Gonzalez, the kicker replacement for Austin Seibert. So that should let you know where they're at in terms of like bringing in new kickers. Now he may be saying that right now on the Monday after the game, and they may be looking for kickers down the line, but it doesn't sound like they are moving on from Gonzalez. I know you asked about Seibert, but I say all that to say, if they like Zane and Zane shows consistency, they may bring Zane and Austin back, right? But if they move on from uh, Zane at some point because they're looking for another kicker, who knows what the future is for either one of these guys. It's just hard to tell, because while Austin was good and he actually set records here in Washington, he was here for a short period of time.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned Zane Gonzalez there and how Dan Quinn said that he's most likely safe for at least now. However, Gonzalez did miss both of his kicks last week. I know Dan Quinn says one thing. If it were up to you, what are you doing in this situation with Gonzalez?
Well, I honestly, I would now I wouldn't say I got all the faith in the world in Zane, but I wouldn't mind keeping him. I mean, we got to remember two uh 2 weeks before, or yeah, 2 weeks before. So I think that was against Philadelphia. Washington needed him, and he came through when the offense couldn't score anything when they were in plus territory in terms of touchdowns. They couldn't score anything against the Philadelphia Eagles. So Washington needed him then. He came through. Washington didn't need him last week, and he still went over, right? But I think I wouldn't mind keeping him. I think this is one of those ones you gotta see it through, just like you've seen some other kickers through. Look, they didn't went through the gauntlet already. So figuring out who else is out there isn't going to be too difficult. But also, I would give him more than just 2 games to figure it out. If you were the other kickers earlier in the season, where you can't hit nothing in practice, You can't hit nothing in training camp, preseason games, right? Then we're like, all right, we don't even need to waste no time in figuring out if you can be our kicker or not. Zane is a veteran. He's had time here meaning in the NFL. So they're going to give him an opportunity to get over just the one game where he had two misses, but they were not impactful to the outcome.
Yeah, now Washington, following their win against Tennessee, has just over a 70% chance to make the playoffs, assuming they get in as a wild card, which I know you said that you think they will. Is this a team that could realistically make some noise in the playoffs?
You know, Matt, when they got Marshawn Lattimore, I was on StubHub, right? I was looking up the prices for Super Bowl tickets, right? And unfortunately, they were too expensive. At that time, I was like, you know what, this is not this is not a feasible idea for me. But we'll see how things go down the line, and maybe it may be a once in a lifetime experience. Matt, unfortunately, as time has progressed, I think the Philadelphia Eagles are a huge problem. I think that the Detroit Lions are a huge problem. I don't think that Washington, unfortunately, stacks up in terms of personnel and overall talent to, like, you really have to strike light. You have to strike lightning on offense and hope you get a couple turnovers against these guys. And that is not impossible. That is very possible. But the likelihood of that happening versus like you going straight up against the Philadelphia Eagles, you going straight up against Detroit and saying, beat us. I think that is where Washington comes short because they just aren't there from a talent or depth perspective. Perspective there yet. So that's where the struggles, in my opinion, lies. And you can get lucky with the turnovers and score some points in that fashion, and you can certainly win. You can certainly make some noise. I think that they have all the chances in the world to make it out of the wild card. I just don't know if they can get past the divisional.
Yeah, and I mean, when they played the Eagles just a few weeks ago, I think Philly did turn it over a few times, and Washington still couldn't take advantage of that. Of course, that was during their offensive slump, I guess you could call it. Uh, it would be interesting to see what happens in week 18, or I don't know
I
if
think we
it's
play
week
them in week
18, but
16.
16 when we play the Eagles again. I think that'll be obviously really telling in terms of this whether this team can actually hang with Philadelphia. Still not sure about the Lions. Would definitely say they're the best team in the NFL right now.
Yeah, man.
But at least we'll be able to prove ourselves against Philly, hopefully later in the year. And then obviously the Commanders could use help at a lot of different positions, including wide receiver, offensive line, defensive line. Luckily, as I kind of touched on earlier, this upcoming draft class has a lot of talent to choose from. What position do you expect the Commanders to target in the first round of the 2025 NFL Draft?
Mm, First round. You can go several different avenues, Matt. What I will say is the acquisition of Marshawn Lattimore freed up your possibilities in the first round, right? And what I will add to the question, because of Marshawn Lattimore, you can even go a little bit crazier in free agency. So that adds variables to your draft, right? You were talking about you were talking about draft uh, eligible wide receivers some time ago, but T. Higgins is going to be a free agent coming up soon. There's going to be other available free agents where you look at these guys and you're saying, all right, well, we have some free agents who very much wants to play with Jaden Daniels, right? And that don't just mean on offense, that can mean on defense too. Like somebody who wants to build around Jaden, and you can take advantage of that while he's on a rookie contract, right? You're talking about 4 more years of Jaden Daniels after year one, where you can add all of these guys around him. And if you can get one Super Bowl out of that, that's great. You can get multiple out of that, that's great. If you're contending consistently in those 4 years after this rookie season, that is exactly where you want to be. You just have to make sure you capitalize. All that being said, back to the draft, you're going skill position. The question is, do you go cornerback? Do you go wide receiver? And that is why I introduced the element of free agency. There's a variable in there, even tight end. But I mean, you're going to be picking late in the first round. You're not going to be top 10, right? So maybe tight end is appealing. Maybe running back is appealing. Do you like the guy from Boise State where you can go him and B Rob as your 1-2 punch? Because we don't know, and Austin Eckler as a change of pace guy where he gets like 10 touches a game. Who knows? But yeah, man, I think they go skill position. I think that they go cornerback or wide receiver, more importantly. But I do think there's some wild card positions, and that's where I think running back or tight end can come into play.
Yeah, and I think this is a team that has a lot of flexibility in terms of obviously where they could go in the first round. And there's a lot of teams right now. It feels like every year the amount of teams that need to draft a quarterback, need a new quarterback is a lot more. And right now, a lot of different teams need a new quarterback. Luckily, we have our guy, and now it's all about building around him. It wasn't going
Mm-hmm.
to work with Heineke. It wasn't going to work with Howell. But now we don't have to obviously worry about that anymore. And it can all be about the surrounding pieces. And I think that's probably easier to build around at this point. Now,
I'm with you. Oh,
of course, next week the Commanders are on a bye. However, they do play the New Orleans Saints in Week 15, who are currently 4-8, coming off a loss against the Rams. What are the keys to victory for Washington in that matchup?
come on, man. Run the football. You know, Jaden, use your legs. Make the Saints defense account for all 11 offensive players. And make sure that we stay aggressive in terms of like taking those deep shots, those second level, those third level, like 10 to 12 to 15 yarders, the 20 plus yarders. Attack them, right? Like target these guys downfield, while also again staying level headed and balanced with the ground game as well. If anybody who knows me and watches the Trapper Dive or listens to the Trapper Dive knows that I do not like Derek Carr. I'm admittedly telling people that. It's not that I dislike him as a person. I don't know him. I just don't think he's a good quarterback. And I think if you pressure Derek Carr, and you force him into situations where he has to really hone in on his playmaking skills, you're gonna have opportunities to either strip sack him. You're going to have opportunities to have him force terrible passes downfield. You just got to pick them off. You can't let those passes go to waste. So that's kind of where I'm at defensively. You got to find a way to pressure Derek Carr. You cannot have a game in which you generate no pass rush, because he can't pick you alive if you got time, and he builds that confidence up. But you can't let him do it. Shut it down. Make him feel like he can't do nothing back there. Uh, and you got a shot to win. Obviously, Alvin Kamara, I got a lot of respect for him. They got a speedster as a wide receiver, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and another guy that I think is on IR, but I'm not too sure. But I say all that.
Rashid Shaheed?
Yes, is he on
Yeah.
IR or is he?
Yeah, he's out for the season, I believe.
Yep, yep. I like him.
Mhm.
But they got MVS, and they got Alvin Kamara. Alvin, he can just like Tyrone Tracy did in the second game against the Giants. Alvin can if you let him do it, he can mess around and get you 60, 70 yards in the first half on the ground by himself. So you got to find a way to shut him down and keep him completely out the game.
Yeah, and I mean, this isn't the best Commanders run defense, obviously. I think we allow the third most rushing yards per game of any team. I don't actually have that stat on me right now, but I'm pretty sure I did see that. Luckily, Luvu and Wagner have been playing really, really good recently, so hopefully they'll be able to limit Kamara, but I think that's going to be a big part to the game. And as we've gotten closer to the end of the season, it feels like the Rookie of the Year race between Daniels and Bo Nix has obviously become a lot closer, and a lot of things can change as the season progresses throughout the remainder of the season. But right now, who do you have winning the award?
It's not even close, Jaden Daniels.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I think unfortunately, what what the media does, they love to build on narratives,
Yeah.
right? And also like when you get into an algorithm, or when people do like I don't even know what this word means to its complete sense, but engagement farming. When people just like they understand that this is the talk of the town, and let me go ahead and jump in on this conversation, right? That's where Bo Nix came from. Now, no disrespect to him. Like he's been playing good football, right? Statistically, he's been playing good football. He's been protecting the football, not turning it over. He's using his legs. He's a big reason why the Broncos are winning. But he's nowhere near as efficient as Jaden Daniels. Even during the losing streak, he was nowhere near as efficient as Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels was the most efficient passer. He is a more efficient runner. He protects the football better. And he's more impactful to the team's offense in terms, like, come on, Matt, not talking to you, but I'm saying, like, Matt, like, we're talking about a team who has a top 6 offense in the NFL. And that's both statistically and advanced metrics. And the conversation with Bo Nix is because they're winning football games, and he statistically looked good, but he's nowhere near it from an advanced stat standpoint or individual stats. It's not even close. But again, when you're losing and the other person's winning and he looks good doing it, like, that's where he comes in. But the conversation started from week 1 to week 13.
Mm-hmm.
We ain't talking about no 3 weeks or 4 weeks where this is all of a sudden a competition. He's winning. Matter of fact, you just convinced me to put some more money down on MVP for Jaden. I mean, rookie of the year for Jaden Daniels. I'm going to do that after this show.
Now, I think another term you could use to define what's been going on is recency bias. Obviously,
yes, there we go.
With the Commanders' losing streak, people, as you mentioned, are kind of trying to make this narrative of, obviously, we want to make it sound more competitive than it really is. We're going to forget everything that Jaden Daniels did throughout the first 9 weeks of the season, where he was a top 5 quarterback. Now he's obviously showing again why he was in that top 5 quarterback ranking. But no, I agree. I don't think it's too close whatsoever. Now, I do have one final question to ask. If there was one piece of advice you could give to an aspiring sports broadcaster and journalist like me, what would it be?
Man, so I know a good friend of mine, and he came onto your show, I believe, as well, John Kahn. You know, when I started doing my journalism thing, that was one of the first people I reached out to, and he was very helpful in helping me get started. You know, he's my unofficial mentor. He's been helping me out a lot, and he's given me opportunities or provided me opportunities here and there to keep me like involved in the industry to some extent. Full transparency. So my day job, the opportunities that he sent me were legit, but my day job, I couldn't take those opportunities because that will require me taking a chance of like leaving my day job, which is very, very good, right? I say that to say one of the best things that I would tell you now, because you are young. What grade are you in?
I'm in 8th grade right now.
Man, look, if you ever need me, hit me up. If you got questions, hit me up. But the best advice that I would tell you, because you are in a position where, like, if I knew this now, like, I'm rooting for you, Matt. Take opportunities to do jobs or like the things that you may feel like are small because you're just starting out, in a sense, right? Take what you may feel is small and build on that. Build your craft. Like, for example, newspaper outlets are looking for people. They will eventually be looking for people when you haven't even in high school yet. So that's actually good. Like, you can start covering sports for your high school, because you're going to be in high school next year. Like, start covering sports and covering the football team there, right? Look for opportunities to be on the PA system, right? If they have a television broadcast over there, like, look for that so you can cover the sports. And then eventually, like, newspaper outlets, right? Like, the newspaper outlets eventually gets you into opportunities where you can start having that writing background from a formal standpoint. So take those opportunities, try to build some connections. But the good thing is, when you get into those lanes by itself, you start to naturally develop those connections. And that's really good for you, because some people, no matter who they are and no matter where they go, They're not going to forget Matt. What's your last name? Heiserman?
Yeah.
They're not going to forget Matt Heiserman, right? So they're going to move other places and they're going to be like, I know this young dude, he's up and coming, but I like him. And I know that he's almost this age, or he may be looking for a new job now that he's out of high school, or we may get him an internship now that he's in college, right? And those things can take you a long way. And try to be unique, man. Stand out. Like, last thing I'll say, like I said, I could tell you a lot. One of the things that helped me, and this my last thing that helped me a couple years ago. A lot of people do podcasts now, right? A lot of people do. They cover sports. They cover football. A lot of Commanders fans started doing these podcasts. I actually invested in myself and I went to a film school, like scouting school, where I learned how to be more detailed in what I looked at, learn how to be more detailed and breaking down the game. And it provided a unique a unique lens that not everybody really took the time to do. Like, a lot of people can tell you what they see online, right? And a lot of them, aren't really looking at it the way that you look at it because you take it more seriously. So, like, you're providing a new lens for your fan base. And that's one thing I was able to do now that I'm older and some opportunities that passed me. I've been able to just invest in myself and bring a new lens to people who follow my content. So just be unique and find different ways where you can actually bring an edge or an advantage to yourself and build your profile up.
Yeah, and with that being said, I can't thank you enough for coming on. I really do appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to say to the people watching before we wrap things up?
Nah, man, I appreciate you, Matt. Just y'all can follow me or follow the podcast on YouTube at Trapper Dive. You can all audio platforms, Trapper Dive as well. Like I said, man, Matt, I appreciate you. And hit me up anytime if you need some help, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, big thanks to Jamual Forrest for being the 23rd ever Highlight Haven interview guest. And as always, we will see you next time.